candidates here for our chair positions, and we randomly drew the order. And the first draw was Robert Anderson.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the experience of being here. It's a great showing. Up here, I was down in Salt Lake County, and it was a little bit less than this, or maybe it's about the same, but you expect more of that in Salt Lake. Learned a lesson today, driving from Salt Lake up here. It's pretty crowded in the traffic, so better be prepared for that. All right, top 3 issues, and the reasons why I'm campaigning. Number one of the top issues in this state is protect states' rights. That was in a poll last year. Second, restore fiscal integrity, and 3, improve communication. As far as protecting states' rights go, the states' rights are important. As we know, individual rights are as well. Something that you need to talk about when you talk about those, and we'll get it out there, Senate Bill 54, okay? So everybody has an opinion on Senate Bill 54, as do I. The legislation is out there, it's gone to the appeals court. My opinion on Senate Bill 54 is this. The Utah Supreme Court decision at the last appeal was the GOP's argument fails to, or simply ignores the structure of the statute. Okay, ignores the structure of the statute. So in layman's terms, what that means is our argument, not that they disagree or agree with it or disagree with it, it's irrelevant to the case. So when you take an appeal and you continue to appeal that case, the irrelevancy is a factor because you can't add anything new to your argument. So what I'm saying is, if we continue to appeal this, we're throwing money at something that's likely to fail. Success rate of that would be fairly slow. So I think we should pursue other avenues. There's a lot of avenues out there, and we can talk about those offline. The second one, restore fiscal integrity. I'm a captain at American Airlines. I went down to training a couple of weeks ago, and they have 3-day training occasionally for people to come down and learn leadership. And one of the things I learned down there is leadership is stewardship. So if you become the chair of the party, you're a steward of that party. As a captain for American, when you taxi that airplane around on the lines and you take it off and fly, you're expected to take off and land with all your passengers safe and arrive safely. An aircraft is a huge expense. So when we taxi on the yellow lines, which guarantees wingtip clearance between all objects out there, right? If you get off the yellow lines and you hit something, you as a captain is going to hang. We had a captain 2 months ago that hit wingtips. He was on the yellow line and nothing happened to him because there was an error in the lines that were painted on the ground. For fiscal integrity, the party for the last 4 years has not had a budget. So we saw in Robert Gerke's article today that the party is very hugely in operating debt in accounts payable to businesses out there. So in my opinion, the party has taxied off the lines and created a problem out there. Now some of that problem, if we go back to, not talking about Senate Bill 54, but the situation it caused was we sued our legislators, who are overwhelmingly Republican. So now we have the appearance of a fight between the two of us, okay? Well, that fight translates to donors atrophying. And when the donors atrophy, now you have a financial imbalance in your incoming money versus your outgoing money. So we need to reach out and we need to find those donors to come back to the party. Lastly, improving communication. This fight to keep the caucus system doesn't end when the lawsuit ends. It ends in the hearts and the minds of every citizen in Utah. And if we don't teach and instruct the benefits and the purpose of a caucus system to the voters out there, there'll be another Count My Vote petition out there, and if it gains traction, it will make the ballot and it will pass. So we, as a group, and I'm deputizing all of you, need to go out and talk to your neighbors and get them to be more involved in the convention caucus system. If we do that, I think we've got a successful party which raises the conservative people from within to be a successful party. That's the conclusion of my speech. Thank you again for having me up here.
Well, isn't it funny how the random draw works? Phil, you're number 2.
Okay. Well, thank you, Linda, and thank you, Weber County. It's always a pleasure to come to Weber County. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to be a Republican. Let me just say something about SB 54, since that's how this discussion started. I attended every single hearing. I read every single brief. I even attended a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor and the legal team in an effort to have some type of arbitration. So I know everything there is to know about our lawsuit. One thing I do know that some people don't know is that the last judge ignored 3 key pieces of information, of case law, that we presented from other states throughout the country. The reason we filed our appeal is because we believe that case law needs to be considered, and it will be considered with our appeal process. So anybody who says that we've wasted our time or our effort doesn't know what they're talking about. I've been involved with the party since 1997. In the last 10 years, I've had some incredible opportunities to be in leadership positions. I've been a county and a state delegate. I was elected to be the ethics chair of Davis County. Then I was elected to be the vice chair of Davis County, and I had the honor to be the chair of Davis County. About a year ago, or 2 years ago, I was elected to be the vice chair of the Utah Republican Party. That has been an eye-opening experience. Let me just tell you, I'm not the chair of the Utah Republican Party. I'm the vice chair. There's one sentence that describes the responsibility of the vice chair, and that sentence is to assist the chair. So my job has been to assist James Evans in the decisions that he makes. And I told James when I ran, I will support you under 3 conditions. You always support our Constitution, our bylaws, and our platform. The moment you sway, you won't have my support. When I was elected 2 years ago to be the vice chair of the party, I was grateful that I had been in other leadership positions because it helped me bring that experience to the party. And I spent 2 years traveling the state. I've been to almost every county on multiple occasions. And I've met thousands and thousands of dedicated Republicans. And don't kid yourself, the average Republican supports our caucus convention system. In 2013, when a group of fringe leftists in our party gave us Count My Vote, it was very disingenuous. The idea that your votes don't count is ludicrous. Your votes count more in Utah than any state in the nation because of the way we do our caucus convention system. I eagerly rallied my county to help fund an organization that was defending our right to determine how we advance our candidates to the ballot. That's through the caucus convention system. We raised over $17,000, and then I went through the state rallying other counties, individuals, and businesses to also donate to this fund so we could defend ourselves against the Count My Vote initiative. And then a couple of members of our legislature came forward at an SCC meeting and said, we have a plan, it's called SB 54. They explained it to us and we said, we don't want that. Our information tells us that they do not have enough signatures and time is running out. We were then told that SB 54 would be, I have a hard time with this word, severable, which means if anything in that law is found to be unconstitutional, non-severable. If anything in that law was found to be unconstitutional, the entire law would fall. But that's not how it was passed. It was passed to be severable. That means bits and pieces could be found unconstitutional. You could remove those, but the rest of the law would remain. We did win one of our legal battles, one of the most important. SB 54 opened our primaries, allowing non-Republicans to choose our candidates. Outrageous. We won that and the judge said it's not constitutional. We once again closed our primaries. Yes, we had a victory. I am convinced that over time, we will succeed in defending our caucus convention system. A year ago, I was contacted by Senator Ted Cruz and asked if I would consider being the chair of his Utah campaign for president. I verified with the party there was no issue doing that. According to our bylaws, I was allowed to do that. I had the opportunity to unite thousands of volunteers throughout the state. You know the rest of the story. By the end of our primary season, Utah gave Senator Ted Cruz nearly 70% of the vote, the highest vote in the nation. I know how to organize. I know how to bring people together. The big difference between me and James is I know how to delegate. James tends to do everything on his own, which made it really hard as the vice chair. I know how to get people involved. I'm running out of time, but I've got some more information. I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. I've always been a strong advocate of our caucus convention. I believe that our purpose as Republicans is to promote our platform, because when we promote our platform, we bring people into the party. And we are not looking for candidates who want to run as Republicans. We are looking for Republicans who want to be our candidates, and the only way to find them is through you, the delegates, and that's why I support our caucus convention. So thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We got word that James is like on 12th Street a few minutes ago, so he should be here shortly. Maybe we could just open it up to a few Q&As with you gentlemen, if you don't mind. Is that fair?
Sure.
Why don't you both come up here for a minute, and that way, and I think it's fair for, is it fair to have each candidate answer the question? Or,
Yeah. One question, both answers.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, may take short verbal questions, either a 30 or 60-second time limit. 60 is probably fine since he's a ways off.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
What do you feel is the one or two most important parts of being the chairman of the Republican Party?
Well, as the chairman of the party, you're like the CEO. Your responsibility is to follow the direction of the state central committee and the state delegates, because those are the party bosses. People think the party bosses are the officers. That's not true. The party bosses are the delegates in the state central committee. So the primary responsibility is to get your information from the state central committee, and then you have to be the spokesperson for the party. You have to work with making sure that you're organized well enough that you are able to educate, get information out on caucus night.
30 seconds left.
Different things like that. So that's the most important part, is that you're able to disseminate information and keep people organized and make sure people know what's happening.
Great.
Yeah, whenever you are, sir.
Okay, I agree with that. The State Central Committee is the governing body, so you're at their discretion. Your obligation is to make sure that they have a full and transparent view of the decisions they're making. So you need to bring in both sides of the argument for them to be presented to them. Also, you need to be transparent to everybody else. So when that decision comes down, you need to open up and let everybody know about that decision. So that comes outside of an executive committee meeting. You need to be more open than that. The other thing is you need to also go out and fundraise. You need to be the guy that's knocking on the doors, asking for donations, promoting the party platform, promoting the conservatism that makes our party so great. And if you can't do that, you can't pay for the operation. Also, you have opportunities to go speak at schools and other events, and you need to also emphasize the things that conservatism brings and show that, because through community becomes, conservatism comes from the community and the ground floor up.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
What makes you want to have this position?
We'll start, Rob.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't hear your question,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That is a
What
great-
makes you want to have this position?
That's a great question, because it is a volunteer job, and not only you spend money to campaign, but you also are going to spend a lot of time and effort in doing the best job you can. So what caused me to want to do this is I've always been a fixer. I grew up on a ranch, I grew up on a farm, and I wanted to do things right. I always took pride in how my stacks were built and how the hay was stacked. I grew up in Star Valley. And then I went to the Air Force Academy and got into the military, graduated #1 in my pilot training class, and I wanted to excel there. I have no future desires in politics other than this position, but I want to straighten the party out. I want to get it back on the right tracks fiscally, and I want to improve the process and support you as the delegates and the caucus convention system, and I think I can do that.
I want to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. Having been involved in the party very intimately in the last 10 years, I didn't just start 2 years ago in leadership. And spending 2 years as the vice chair, I just had an incredible opportunity to see people throughout the state and to see their concerns and their frustrations. And I believe that I have the skills to make it happen. It's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work just being the vice chair, but I think it's important. I have 7 children, I have 7 grandchildren, they're all in Utah. I want them to have the same benefits we've had of our caucus convention system. And the attacks we've had, we're not done, it's not over. Regardless of what happens with this lawsuit, There are still certain things we can do to strengthen not our platform, to strengthen our bylaws in the party, to make sure that people really do go through the delegates. I mean, it's the only way we can determine who actually represents us as Republicans. So that's something to fight for, and I'm willing to fight. I have a record as being a fighter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Our distinguished representative from District 7.
Who should decide the path to the ballot, the party or the state?
Because it goes to me.
Yep.
The party is represented by the Republicans. We are a private organization. So the party should always determine who its nominee is going to be. I'm not going to tell a private company who to choose in their leadership if I'm not part of that company and if I'm not in a position to do that. So to me, the obvious answer is the party should decide who the party wants to represent them. And who is the party? It's all of the 715,000 Republicans in the state. And how do they do that? Through the delegate process. That's why you're here today.
I think what you're getting here is the party platform. We abide by the rule of law. So right now, I think we have to follow Senate Bill 54 until there's a change in that law. We might not like it, but that is the way it is. That's the way we have to operate. So when we say that there's a dual path to the ballot and those kind of things, I think those effects were slim this last election cycle. But I also think that we need to make the caucus convention path the preferable one. So we need to make it the easiest and the best system, especially for the grassroots candidate that comes up that doesn't have a lot of support financially and otherwise. So I think it can coexist if it has to. If it gets repealed or changed, then we have another method. But it's a quasi-government. We have the counties that conduct the roll. They maintain our rolls, they conduct our registration, and they conduct our elections. So it's a quasi-government. We're not a private entity by itself.
Can I actually follow up on that question before we go to the next one?
30
Sure,
seconds.
I'll make that decision.
Okay, I'm
I'm
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Robert, you have a response to me.
You know, when SB4 was given to us by our legislators, I didn't attack them. I didn't tell them they were horrible. I appreciate what they did and why. But you know what? Most of them I spoke to said they had to plug their nose when they voted for it. They knew it was bad legislation. Just because something is a law doesn't mean we abide by it. If it's not good, we fix it. Legislators go every session and they tweak and fix laws and they get rid of old laws. So SB 54 was designed to stop the attack on our party, but there were a lot of things that were worse than SB 54, and that's why they told us they did it, because they knew that it wouldn't hold up the constitutional challenge in court.
I think what Phil said was, you don't follow it if you don't like the law. Well, that's not how you operate. Our
That is not
platform
what I
says,
said.
you did.
That is
If
not
we
what
can
I said.
repeat the tape, we'll say this, we'll see that. But you have to follow the law while it's the law. In the meantime,
We are
you
following
work
the
with
law
our,
while it's
thank
the
you.
law.
You work with your legislators to repeal that law. You work with your overwhelming Republican legislator and your Republican governor to change it so it's more acceptable.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Just
And
one.
then you can be next.
Okay. Why have you chosen to be a Republican?
Who does it go to first?
Robert, go.
All right. I chose to be a Republican. I grew up on a farm. I grew up where our hard work and deals were done on a handshake. And I think our party is like that. It is a very conservative upbringing, a very conservative background. I also, just to say I'm LDS, it dovetails directly into LDS. Religion with conservatism and hard work and doing those kind of things. So I think for me it was a natural fit. There's no other, I don't ally with the Democratic platform at all. So it's all the platform.
I chose to be a Republican when I turned 18. The first person I voted for president was Ronald Reagan. And I learned a lot. It's about the time I went on an LDS mission. I believe in the conservative platform of our party. I believe in what our U.S. Constitution says, that every state has the right to a Republican form of government. And I believe that when we adhere to the Constitution and when we adhere to our bylaws, that we are doing our part in this republic. I believe that the Republican Party is the most conservative party There are some things I get frustrated with leadership, but we all feel that way because nobody's perfect. But I definitely believe that the Republican Party is the closest thing to our U.S. Constitution. And that's why I defend it, and that's why I'm a Republican.
As far as the rebuttal, we aren't abiding by our bylaws currently because we have no budget, no operating budget, which is required by the bylaws.
Okay, if we can hold a question, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce James Evan, our sitting chair for the Republican Party of Utah. James, thanks for making it.
Well, thank you.
The candidates have given their 5-minute speech. What I'd like to do at this time, if I can, is give you the opportunity to address the delegates. And then I'd like to open it up for, as quickly as possible, a Q&A session where all 3 candidates can address the questions. Fair enough?
Good.
Okay.
Well,
James
thank
Evan?
you. I apologize for my tardiness. We're literally in the middle of negotiating Jason Chaffetz's resignation. So clearly there are different points of view on when that's going to happen. I've certainly went there to advocate for the party's point of view, what would benefit our ability to have as much say as we can and who that replacement will be. You have the House and the Senate with their point of view on the replacement process. You have the governor with his point of view. But literally, when Jason Chaffetz decides to announce his resignation, will trigger what the options are. And so I clearly have been trying to get him to do it at a time that will best benefit the ability of the delegates. So, got that finished up. Thank you, Linda, for giving me the directions. I think I was going to pass the exit trying to get up here. But I'm James Evans. I'm the current state party chair, and I've served 2 terms thus far. And many have asked, why would you want to do this again? And it's a very simple answer. I would like to finish what we've started and making sure that the party will be in the best possible shape that it can be. We all know about the legal challenge in SB 54, but with that is that element around Count My Vote, who have done everything they can to undermine our organization. Well, I'm the kind of guy that's not going to let that happen. And frankly, we have one of the candidates that's tied with them, who's constantly talking about the finances of the party, and I would like to just simply lay that out. It's very simple. We do have a budget. Our bylaws are clear. We continue with the budget that we have if we don't pass a new budget. And also, if we choose not to continue with the budget that we have, then we do what I thought we should do, which is to make sure we operate off of a minimal budget, which is payroll, rent, utilities, and that's what we've done. And that's why we've slashed the budget from $22,000 a month down to $9,000 a month to ensure that at the end of this, we will have the projected surplus, which we will have at the end of our fiscal year. So there's no doubt that there have been forces there trying to undermine the financial integrity of the party, and there's no doubt that we've been able to stave that off. But not only that, we've been able to simply work around it and move forward. How many of you are aware that now you can buy advertising with the Utah Republican Party? That's a free market solution. So what we've done is simply monetize our membership base. We've been selling ads leading up to the convention, but it goes on throughout the year because of our digital platform. I'll give you one example. I was talking to a senator, and I said, you know, normally I would ask you for a contribution. And I says, but you know what? I don't have to do that because you have a great business. Why don't you just go ahead and buy advertising with us? And he says, oh, that comes out of my marketing budget. I get to write that off. So yeah, let me send you the ad right now. It's a very simple prospect, which is we have something of value that we can bring to the marketplace, exchange it for monies to run our organization, as opposed to allowing ourselves to be limited by a few donors who will choose to try to constrain our abilities to make decisions for ourselves. So we have resolved that issue, and we are moving on. And that's why I'm running again for the next stage, which is to make sure as an organization that you're able to make the decisions that you think are best for the party and not have to be encumbered by those who would then try to use a financial weapon to undermine our abilities to decide what we think is best for us. And that's been my commitment as chair, and it certainly has not been an easy task, but we have moved on from that, and as a result, we're already preparing for 2018. We have, based on our new revenue streams, We have a meeting of the State Central Committee in June, where now we are able to put forth the new predictable revenue streams. Our cost structure has been modified, and our legacy debt would have been paid off. And so now is when you bring your budget committee together, because now they have something to work with. And those are simply the jobs of the chief executive. And so in saying that, have you ever been in a situation where you're 2/3 of the way through a difficult task, and you're saying, we've got 1/3 of the way to go, we just want to complete it and make sure that we leave the organization in the best possible shape? That's been my commitment to the Utah Republican Party, and that's why I'm running again for one more term. It's just to complete the task that we started to make sure that the Utah Republican Party will be in the best possible shape for the future.
Thank you, James. So, Phil and Robert, if you wouldn't mind coming back up here, let's open up for a little bit more Q&A. I think we're doing okay. What time does the switcheroo take place?
When they get here.
Okay, good.
When they get here, that's when we leave.
We might throw you out sooner.
Okay.
Sir, I'm sorry, you had a question first?
No, I asked.
There was one
Oh,
back,
gotcha.
just back
Yeah,
here.
but
Yes, sir.
only two people answered it, the two candidates that were out there, so if Mr. Evans.
What was the question?
Why are you a Republican?
Oh,
Chose to be a Republican, why did you choose?
actually, that's a good question, because my folks have asked me that when I signed up at 18, when I registered. And it's to me, it's the funniest answer is, you know, I grew up in South Carolina, and in the Deep South, small town, you know, largely Democrat. But the way that we were raised, when it was time to register to vote, it was, you know, I heard Reagan, heard Carter, signed up as Republican because what Reagan said was exactly how my parents, you know, our parents raised us. So I tell them I registered as a Republican, and they're like, why on earth would you do that? I said, because that's how you raised us. What do you mean? I mean, we believe in family, limited government, liberty, everything that you taught us is and to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. And so it was never a question that I would be Republican because that simply is how I was raised. I registered at 18 as a Republican, went to a historically black college, created a Republican club, and let me tell you, if you don't know why you're Republican then, you would never know because we were attacked all the time, but we stood our ground. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Here's my question, sorry if it's slightly lengthy, but when we had the caucus meetings this last time, we had record turnout, and I've been involved in caucus meetings for years in 3 different locations, Bountiful, Beaver, and North Ogden. And I always attend my caucus meetings. I like it, it's fun. And we had record turnout, and there was a presidential campaign on the line. Then plus a week or 2 before the caucus meeting, the first president of the LDS Church sent all ecclesiastical leaders, including myself, saying, cancel all your meetings that night, attend your caucus. You know, and it was thrilling to have that many people come. And I remember our room at Bountiful Junior High, which is designed for 35 students, we had over 80 packed in there.
Is there a question in there, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the question. We beat ourselves on the chest. Yay, such a grassroots movement. I looked to see how many registered Republicans were in the precinct. There's over 500. 80 is about 15 or 16%. That's an F. Hardly a grassroots movement. How can we broaden without having to rent halls and everything like that? You guys are all saying caucus, caucus, caucus. It's way to go with caucus. But if we doubled our caucus numbers, we'd be renting Weaver High's auditorium, and there's so many precincts. What do you plan to do?
Thank you. Phil, why don't you start? Robert, you go second, and James, you can
Okay.
finish up.
You know, it's a great problem to have when too many people show up to do the right thing, right? One of the issues that we have, and I've talked about it for years, even when I was the chair of Davis County, it would be great if our county clerks could make the size of our precincts a little smaller. Because over the last decade, we're getting more and more people attending their caucus meetings. And the idea is that you go to a meeting, there's 30 to 50 people, and you know all of those people. So it's much easier for you to decide who you want to represent you. When 150 people show up, you may not know half of those people, so it makes it a little more difficult. So one of the first things that I would like to see is our county clerks, and I've spoken to a lot of them in the last few weeks, to see if they can reduce the size of our precincts. Then we have to, as far as how do you get more people out? I think the best way to get more people out is you have to do a better job of messaging. And one of the things I would like to do as chair is really take advantage of social media. 2 weeks ago, I did a Facebook Live event and had over 1,000 people watch that.
100%.
There are things that we're not doing that we can do to communicate our message and get our platform out there that will bring more people.
Thank you, Phil. Reducing the size of the meeting is one of those things you can do. Also, in Davis County, we worked with the school district, and we got the school district to agree to, in the future, not scheduling any school events that night, to make the schools available and also the parents available to attend caucus night. The other thing that we need to do is we need to acknowledge the fact that the absentee ballot system is fairly cumbersome and difficult to do. And we also have people who work in the evenings in the hospitals, firemen, cops, and those things, as well as families with younger children that have either athletic events or just can't leave the home because they don't have a babysitter. So those issues all need to be addressed, and they need to be figured out so that we can increase our participation even more. But then the facilities become an issue, so you're right on that. So, thank you.
James?
Yeah, actually, the reason that I really like the question you asked is because we have been working on this for several years, and I've been there from the beginning and working on this. That's why we have an absentee ballot method. That's why we have online voting. That's why we've been able to make sure that we are moving in a direction of allowing you or your caucus attendees to decide if they want to vote by absentee or vote in person. Because the data that we're starting to get from that is starting to show a trend that the absentee ballot system is starting to really mushroom because people are figuring it out. And we knew it would take 2 or 3 caucus cycles for that to catch on. So your concern about massive amounts of people, one of the counterweights to that was just simply people that say, well, you know, I can just vote absentee, I know who I'm going to vote for. But we will have that problem in the future, which I hope we do have, which is how do we accommodate everyone? Physical arrangements is one, absentee balloting, online opportunities, you know, so we can come up with the right solutions if we all just work together on it.
Thank you, James. Yes?
On this,
Is that Linda Pitt? Linda Pitt.
problem child. Okay, on this proposed amendment to our party bylaws for U.S. House of Representative vacancies, I just wondered what's your opinion of this, and what is the governor proposing? What is our legislature proposing?
We might as well start with you, James.
Yeah, well, I think before we start, just so does everybody understand the proposal that Linda's talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's a proposed bylaw amendment. Right now, we don't have in our documents, our governing documents, an ability to forward a name as a party if there's a vacancy in the U.S. House of Representatives. That doesn't exist. So we now have a proposed bylaw amendment that would allow that mechanism. And so I just want to make sure you understood that. Not going to have a minute.
Sure.
Okay. So when Chase, literally I landed at 10:05 p.m. on April 19th, I'll never forget, turned on my phone and got all this information that Chafis was stepping down. The deadline was 5 p.m. on April 19th to submit any kind of amendments to our governing documents. So I quickly wrote up that amendment to make sure we would have an opportunity as a party to put forth a name. Because absent that, we would have been left out of the process. 1929 was the last time that we had a vacancy. There was just not an issue that has come before us in any kind of meaningful way. So what you have there is an opportunity, at least now we can forward one name, that's if the delegates or the central committee choose to vote for that proposal. So Chafis steps down. The governor has to then decide whether he's going to call a special election or whether he's going to allow the legislature to actually vote something into law. But they have to sort that out. But whatever the mechanism is, we just wanted to make sure that as a party, we could forward a name. And that particular proposal says that a person who gets a majority vote will be the name that's set to move forward by the 1,000 delegates, in this case in Congressional District 3. So as your chair, I wanted to make sure that our delegates had a say in putting forth a name that currently wasn't available.
Great, thank you, James. We'll move back toward you, Robert. Phil?
I think he was next.
Okay, Robert, we'll move over to this side of the room, and Phil, you'll be next.
Okay. This is something that's ongoing. There's discussions between the governor. I think the representatives, the Republican representatives had a meeting today in the House to discuss this. And so before that's settled, I think you're right, we need a bylaw change within the party, but also we need them to come into an agreement on the procedures and the route we go. Because this hasn't happened before, it needs to be followed. There needs to be something laid out and something agreed upon between everybody. So that's what I would recommend.
I support the amendment, and here's why. One of the other problems with SB 54, it created what's called plurality, where we don't elect the candidate who gets the highest 50% or more. We would choose the candidate who gets the most votes. That means someone who gets 20% of the vote could actually be our candidate. Well, that means 80% of the Republicans didn't choose that person. So plurality is a nightmare. And that's what the state is about to deal with right now. If the governor appoints just has a special election, and we have a plethora of candidates, we could have someone win who gets 10% of the vote. And guess what? It could be a Democrat. If we had 10 Republicans all fighting for the same thing and one Democrat, he could actually get 10% of the vote and win because the Republicans split the vote between themselves. So I think this is very important. I appreciate that James brought that up, and I hope that it passes.
Thank you, Phil. A question, and I would like to reserve a spot for a question from the moderator, so let's take one here. And
If you get elected, what follows this term for you? What are you gonna do next?
Does that start with me?
I think it would be Robert this time.
Oh, it starts with
No, actually, Phil's running the show. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm the moderator. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Robert.
Oh, I can go?
I'm keeping you
I
guys
have no
on
future
toes.
plans. If I can finish this term, return the party to the black, and have a good run, my plans are to go back into life. I'll be an empty nester, and at that point, and go on vacations with my wife and relax. But I have no future political aspirations whatsoever.
You got the airfare covered?
I do. A little discount because of that.
Phil, is,
First of all, I have no plans to run for public office. I admire those in public office. That's a really hard thing, especially when you're a politician, you're trying to please everybody. I don't try to please everybody. I know who I am. I know what I believe. I stand on my principles. I think being the chair of the party allows me the opportunity to help find good Republicans who want to be our representatives. That's my desire. I have no desire to run for public office. And whether I serve for 1 or 2 terms, I can assure you I won't be one of these politicians to say just 1 more term.
thank you. James?
Thank you. I guess I have the benefit of the fact that I had been an elected official. I served in the state senate. So I know firsthand that is simply not something I'm interested in doing because, no disrespect, but elected officials oftentimes have to hold their tongue more than they would like to. And that happens to be a talent I don't have, you know. And so, and I admire their ability and their restraint in doing that. But as the state party chair, oftentimes people, I admire people, or I'm amazed by when people say what they won't do in the future, because you never know until you get there. If I win again, that 2 years couldn't come fast enough. I have no interest in being chair beyond 2 more years, nor do I have an interest, I guess I've been hearing I'm going into the Trump administration. I know them, I work with them all the time. I have no interest in doing anything at the federal level, because frankly, I think a lot of them are evil. Not the people, but the whole setup, you know, it's just too much concentration of power. So I would just like to, I'm a grassroots guy at my heart, and it's just the most magical thing when you see people come together and make decisions, and we all benefit from it. So that's where my heart is.
Thank you, James. Are there any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes, sir? Well, this will be the second to the last one.
If you lose, what assistance will you offer the person who wins?
I think I go first on that one, right?
You bet, James.
Yeah. Oh, if I lose, I'm not talking to either one of them. I'm just gonna,
That means nothing will change. Just kidding. James knows that I like him. We're friends. He's a good guy.
It's, no, just whatever I'm able to do to assist, because it's really about, making sure that our organization is successful. It's not, for me, it's never been about the individuals. It's about the fact that we work together because we're here for a common purpose. And if we lose sight of that, then we don't need to be involved.
Thank you. And Phil?
It's okay for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's no doubt in my mind, I care about our party and our platform. I will do everything I can to support whoever wins. And this is an interesting question. I'm glad you asked it. I ran for re-election in Davis County to be the chair. I lost by 3 votes to this man. And he can stand here and tell you the first thing I did, I went up, I shook his hand, I said, Rob, congratulations. I will do everything I can to help you succeed. And I did everything I could. I will do the same thing. This election is not about me because I'm not looking for a political career. My wife would rather I do other things. I'm doing it because I feel compelled to do it. It's the right thing to do. But I will support either of these gentlemen because I feel it's my obligation as a Republican.
Thank you. Short answer, yes, I will support those. And apparently, I didn't know, but I have connections with Mike Levitt, so maybe I should be maybe out there fundraising. But
I got it covered. You're good.
But so no, I would help and assist as well, as my wife has been involved in politics much longer than I have, and she's always been by my side. So she's the current chair or the president of the Utah Federation of Republican Women. So we've been involved. We'll stay involved.
Okay, thank you. And if you don't mind indulging the moderator, I got an email from you this afternoon, Robert, 2 hours before, regarding the financial position of the party. It was news to me, although I'm fairly new at this higher level in the party. But essentially, what I've been able to witness over the last 7 or 8 years of being involved in the system is that managing budgets, fundraising is a difficult thing to do. Our party was pretty much, as I saw it from the bleachers, fought off an attempted coup with respect to our party that cost this party an awful lot of money in the court system to defend ourselves and our party. You mentioned that a fiscally prudent party would never need to hit up anyone to pay their bills. And I'm not just picking on you, but my question to all 3 candidates is that under the circumstances, how would you have handled this type of assault on a private organization without rainy day funds to fight such a battle to defend itself if you're not going to take on debt? I'm just curious. The better question would be, how can we raise more funds and get more participation in the party? But I wondered if there's something the candidates would like to say with respect to how you might keep us out of this kind of situation in the future should it arrive. And we will start with you, Robert.
Okay. I had a family, this is personal to me, because I had a family issue where I lost a legal battle, and it was very dear to me. I lost custody of my children, and it was because the judge decided to circumvent the law and allow my kids to move out of state without a custody evaluation, which I thought was unfair. My attorney said to me, he goes, there's nothing you can do. He covered himself by not changing the custody or the child support amount. And so, in this point, I think I had the sufficient resources to continue that lawsuit, but I realized it was more prudent not to because my case was a losing case because he had hedged his bets. So when we looked at this, we needed to look at all of the legal options, which we did, and we figured that the legal challenge was the way to go, which we did. And now what we didn't expect was the fact that the donors were going to atrophy when we sued our own legislature. And so because of the atrophy, that's where the money, and even James says in the article today, that's where it's created a problem as far as fundraising goes with the normal fundraising methods. And so he's resorted to other methods to try and raise those funds. So it's caused that because of that.
So, Bob, the question really was, what methods would you resort to different from what James is doing, or do the same thing James is doing? That's what I was interested in. In other words, I think fundraising is a big issue. If atrophy's out there in the donor class, what would you do about it?
When you see that piling up on you, I think at some point you need to go to the State Central Committee and go, look, I'm having an issue fundraising here, and this is piling up on me. What are our options? Do you want to continue this with this increased debt, or do you not? And let them make a decision.
So there's 2 ways to approach an issue, right? One is to spend less or to find more. right?
Right.
So I'm curious with respect to the attitude of each candidate with respect to that. You know, you either make more or you spend less.
Right.
And I'll let you do last. Let's go to Phil, and then we'll go to James, and
Well,
then.
I'm confused. He already answered the question. Are you asking a different one now?
No, I would like to.
But you said he's going last. Didn't he just go first?
Yes, he did.
Okay,
So I will retract that follow-up question.
I just want to understand.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
right. I'm learning how to be a moderator.
Okay. First of all, I believe you never, ever give up defending your rights. If we had that same attitude, we wouldn't be here today, because those great patriots who stood up to the King of England would have said, the battle is too great. Only 1/3 of them decided they were going to fight. And that's why we're here today. Now, I know James is chomping at the bit because I know what he's going to say, and I'm going to agree with him. One of the things we did with our attorneys is we negotiated an agreement that we will only pay them what we can raise. So yes, there's a debt, but that debt is not stopping the party from moving forward. I think the fact that the party has stood on its principles and is willing to defend itself, and by the way, we never sued the legislators. We're suing the state law. We're not suing individuals. We're suing a law that we believe is unconstitutional. And yes, we lost some of those donors, and here's what we discovered. The majority of those donors were involved in the people who were attacking our party with Count My Vote. So the eye-opener to me is, our simple solution is to do what I helped do with Ted Cruz. You go to the grassroots. We raised thousands of dollars in the state of, we raised more money in the state of Utah for the Ted Cruz campaign than any other state. We can do the same thing. He got an extra few seconds. You gotta let me have it too.
Well,
We
I'm
can,
getting beat up here.
we can do the same thing in
2
Utah
years to go.
by getting our message out to the average Republican. As I go around the state, I hear people all the time say, I don't understand this debt thing. I just assumed the party had millions of dollars because almost everybody's a Republican. You'd be amazed at how many people think that. And what I say to them is, you are a Republican, you control the party, and we need money from you. I don't want to be dependent on special strings-attached donations.
You're at the same.
If 10% of our registered Republicans gave $5 a year, we'd have over $335,000 a year for our party. So there's lots of things we can do.
Great, thank you, Phil. James?
And, you know, yeah, I'm chopping at the bit for this one because I've been living this for the last 4 years. And I can tell you right now, of the three of us, I'm the one with the experience that can tell you what will work and what will not work. And right off of the bat, let me tell you about our financial picture quickly. Yes, it wasn't so much the donors who chose not to give, that's the issue. It's that those with influence and power have been intimidating others who would rather give to the party to not give. And that's just being vindictive, you see. And so that was a battle which I had to fight privately and work around. And we have been successful at that, which is why we have a projected surplus. But it doesn't matter what we do, those same individuals have the media's attention and they can spin whatever narrative that they want and say the party's in debt, the party's in debt. I just sat down with Robert Gerke yesterday and laid out all of our financials. And I can tell when I was talking to him, he'd already had his mind made up because multiple people had reached out to him from different levels of government, and you know, to say, no, this is how you need to write this story. But as a party, when you're grassroots, you just forget all of the nonsense and you move on to get the job done. And the way that I respond to anything is with results. So our convention paid for in full. Now, if we weren't able to raise money, how can we have the convention paid for in full? The monies have been raised, the checks are being cut, and we're moving on. We do have about $62,000 in additional debt that's being paid down, and the way that that's being paid down is I worked out arrangements with the debtors. So we have two sides of this. First, as an executive, you have to solve the problems that you have in front of you. Whether, but I thought I'd get a few extra
I
seconds.
did, I gave you the same amount.
I'm gonna give you 30 more seconds, James.
Quickly, as an executive, you solve the problems in front of you. You don't go out saying, this person started, this person didn't. It doesn't matter. We're going to be successful as a party, and that's what I've committed to. That's why we're in the black at the end of our fiscal year. That's why our convention's paid for in full. That's why we brought online new revenue streams. You solve the problems, and you move on, and never lose sight of what we're here to do, which is to get great Republicans elected and promote the principles of the platform. Not all this nonsense about debt, this and debt, that. And that's just a game that's played by political insiders.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
So,
Now,
so for the 2-minute wrap-up, we need to go in that order, because it needs to be reversed.
okay, so what I'm like to do is offer each candidate a 2-minute wrap-up time, and James, while you're warmed up, I'm going to start with you, work in reverse order.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you all for coming out and being state delegates and being involved. At the end of the day, this whole process is about the 700,000+ registered Republicans plus the 600,000+ of unaffiliated voters that tend to vote Republican. So you ask yourself, why would one want to spend 30 to 40 hours a week doing a volunteer position? It's because our party matters, and the results that we have been able to exhibit over the generations. It's hard to explain until you go to other states or you've been involved at the national level and you see the admiration that other states have for Utah. And it says, how are you guys able to just have all these accolades? How are you able to have accomplished so much? How are you able to be so fiscally responsible? And you seem to get problems solved. You see, at the core of this has been what we have done as a party with our caucus convention system, and there is no secret about the fact that as ordinary Utahns, we've been able to hold our elected officials accountable in a symbiotic way. In other words, they have to constantly come before people who are informed, who continue to stay involved, and our elected officials do keep that in mind. The relationship works in a way that has benefited Utah. And so as chair of the party, I want to make sure that we can continue this relationship that has resulted in such great results for the state of Utah for generations. Is it a sacrifice? Is it an obligation? Yes, it is. But nothing worth having is not worth, that you don't have a sacrifice or it's an obligation. If it's worth doing, you get out there, you roll up your sleeves, and you make it happen. As chair of the party, it's been a privilege. Yes, I do want to finish the task that we've started, but we're able to demonstrate the results. And at the end of the day, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how powerful you are, you're not going to defeat the Utah Republican Party. It's going to be here for generations to come because you are the Utah Republican Party, and they're not going to defeat 700,000 people. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again for giving us this platform, the opportunity to introduce ourselves so you can get to know us a little bit better. I told you in the beginning my experience as a leader in the party. I also know the governor. I know our legislators. And having the opportunity to serve as the chair of the national delegation to the convention, I've also met great leaders throughout the country. I'm the vice president of a credit union. I know something about finance. I know how to negotiate and how to work with people. There's no doubt in my mind that I can pick up the torch and continue the path of defending our caucus convention system. I can also stand here and tell you without hesitation, I've always defended our caucus system. I didn't just get involved 2 years ago. I didn't sign the Count My Vote petition and hide it from people to get elected. I am a Republican. I support our platform, and I know that's the only way we build our party. I'm very concerned about the 600,000 unaffiliated voters because I believe the majority of them are Republicans and they don't know it. My 30-year-old son just became a police officer. He changed his career about a year ago when he discovered one day that he's a Republican. That's the challenge we have as Republicans, to get our message out. The more we get our message out, the more we promote our platform, the more we get people involved, and the more we get the grassroots involved, those are the people who need to be supporting our party. Those are the people who need to be making donations. I have a track record of doing that, of fundraising, and I know that as chair, I can see this lawsuit through, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I agree with James, our party is not going to go away, but we can become stronger when we do a better job of getting our message out there. And I've discovered there's two groups of people in Utah in the Republican Party. There's the defenders and the dividers. The dividers have a loud voice, but there are more defenders, and you can defend the party without being defensive. That's what I will do as the chair of the party, and I hope that I get your vote.
My leadership background as a fighter pilot is leading men into combat, so I can lead people and I can get them to do things. I'm very proud that I was busy. I traveled for 25 days a month when I was working 2 jobs. When I got out of that, I jumped into politics with both feet. And as the chair of the Davis County Republican Party, I walked in and we didn't have a budget. The previous 2 years, we'd gone from $95,000 in our bank account to $49,000. And I saw a problem there. So I looked at our bylaws, realized that we needed a budget, and we needed to follow that budget. Also, we needed a biennial financial review to see where our money was going, which hadn't been done in the last 2 treasurers. So, with that being said, we ended my tenure with money in the bank. And that money is there to help out in the county. I'm involved in the party because I want to do the same at the state level. I want to bring finances back to a good place in the party so that we don't have people calling up and saying that, hey, I heard that our bill just went to collections for this. I hear we got a bill that went to collections for that. That's a black eye in the Republican Party, and we don't need that out there. We don't need articles like Robert Gerke's going in the paper. We need to be responsible, follow our platform, be conservative, follow those principles, and that way we can bring more people into the party through the conservative example that we set. Thank you.